Today we're going to be doing a hypothetical matchup if Donald Trump was able to run for a third term in the 2028 presidential election cycle and facing his former opponent, that of former Vice President Kamala Harris, in this 2028 matchup. And we're going to see where things land and if Kamala Harris has a better or worse shot at being elected president in 2028 against Donald Trump than in 2024. So let's go ahead and get into today's video by talking about safe Democrat and Republican states that would go to each respective party by over 15 percentage points on average. So we're looking, of course, at states like Washington, California, Illinois, even states like New York and Massachusetts. We're looking at states like Rhode Island, New Hampshire, etc. So overall, these are the states where, if we date back to the 2024 cycle, overall most of these states were safe or similar to that situation. Not all of them, such like New York, was not a safe Democratic state. But in this matchup specifically, given the environment, given things going on, I think that we would have a safe margin in all of these states. I think that these are safe to say that Democrats would win in a safe margin by. So with that said, let's move over to the Republican states that would be won by more or less of a safe margin for the Republican Party. And these are states that have continuously voted for Republicans by pretty solid margins. So we're talking about states like Kentucky, Montana, Wyoming, etc. So states that continue to vote for Republicans by substantial margins and give Republicans an equal opportunity, really, to have a matchup here. So with these states in mind, we're then going to move over and talk about the likely Republican and likely Democratic states for each party. So these are states anywhere from 5 to 15%. That's a big jump there, a big margin, really. 5 to 15% is. But overall, these are states that Democrats and Republicans would win by a likely margin. So states like Colorado, New Mexico, Minnesota, Virginia for Democrats, New Jersey, New Hampshire. These are states that I think the Democrats would win by in a likely margin. These are states that continue to vote towards Democrats, just not quite to the point where we can consider them, likely states, not over 5% across the board for Democrats at least. So these are states that that we would consider likely blue for the Democratic column. And with that said, I'm going to move over to the Republican column. So the states that I would consider likely Republican are going to be states like Texas, states like Florida, South Carolina, Ohio, Iowa, etc. These are states. I also forgot to characterize Hawaii. Sometimes that happens for me. Sorry, guys. And then also Alaska is going to be in there. Likely Republican states, anywhere from 5 to 15% on average. Maine 2nd District also going to be on that column as well. And that leaves us with 7 key battleground states that decided the 2024 election and likewise would decide the 2028 election. So I want to start over on the West Coast with Nevada. Nevada is a state that Donald Trump carried in the 2024 cycle, and we kind of predicted that going in. We predicted that Republicans were going to perform much better in the state of Nevada than they had in the past. But in this cycle specifically, and given the environment, the state of the economy and such, I actually believe Kamala Harris is going to carry the state of Nevada by a lean Democratic margin. So I think Democrats have their first flip of the night. That's going to come out of Nevada in this specific matchup. Moving over to Arizona, though, I think Donald Trump actually carries the state. A little bit slimmer of a margin than that of 2024. I think we're anywhere from 1% to 5% in that lean Republican column for Arizona. But I still think that Republicans are favored to win here. Donald Trump won the state by over 5% in 2024. I don't expect that to happen, but I do expect the state to go towards the Republican Party again in 2028 in a matchup like this. That said, I'm going to move over to the state of Wisconsin. This is a state, again, where Donald Trump won, but he didn't win it by anything crazy. And in this specific matchup, given the state of the economy, given the democratic environment, really, that I think we might be in 2028, given the fact that that there's so much going on in the country, from the war in Iran, so much more in this current moment, and I can't really predict without having those in mind. Maybe the war in Iran's over by 2028. Maybe the state of the economy is better by 2028. I don't know. But at this point, I have to consider those things. Kamala Harris wins the state of Wisconsin by a lean Democratic margin, anywhere from 1% to 5%. Moving over to the state of Michigan, similar situation to that of Wisconsin, but Michigan's going to be slightly closer in favor of Kamala Harris. This is going to be a tilt Democratic state. I think Kamala Harris wins it, just not by as huge of a margin as maybe some predict. I think Donald Trump still performs well here, just not well enough to win the state outright. And ultimately, I think that lands in a situation where Kamala Harris wins this by under a percentage point. Moving over to the state of Pennsylvania, another key battleground state, and I think one that Kamala Harris could carry. I think, again, in a matchup like this, it's just too hard to see a world where President Trump wins some of these key battleground states, including Pennsylvania. Given, like I said before, the state of the economy, given the war in Iran, there's too much going on. I'm going to put this in Kamala Harris's column, lean Democrat. Moving down to the state of North Carolina, I think that this state continues to get closer and closer and prove that Democrats can win here. They have a governor, a lieutenant governor, and attorney general there. They're expected to have a senator there after the 2026 midterms later this year. But I don't know that I quite believe it's going to flip yet. I think this is actually going to be one of the closest races in favor of Trump, though. I think this goes tilt Republican. The slimmest margin Trump's ever won the state of North Carolina by, under a percentage point across the state in North Carolina in this specific matchup. And that leaves us with the final state, which is the state of Georgia. And I think this one may arguably be one of the hardest states to predict, but also one that I think that Democrats continue to perform well in. We expect John Ossoff to win across the state later this year, similar to North Carolina. Joe Biden won the state with Kamala Harris as VP in 2020. Donald Trump narrowly won it, really. I mean, only by a couple of percentage points back in 2024. Given everything in the country today, Kamala Harris wins the state of Georgia. It's going to be a lean Democratic margin. It's actually going to be slightly better than Michigan, in my opinion. But Democrats actually win the state of Georgia. Kamala Harris wins the state by a lean margin, probably just over a percentage point, really, on average. So, with all of this in mind, keep in mind, when I say this, I have to be very specific. This matchup is very hypothetical. There's a lot that goes into this. There's a lot that could change the outcome here. But as of today, I think that the stakes are too high for Democrats to lose an election again. And if they're facing someone like Donald Trump, I just don't know that I believe that they lose. I think that Donald Trump, the things that he says, him being the current president and being associated with the state of the economy, being associated with the war in Iran, and then him saying things like he doesn't care about Americans' financial situation and stuff like that, puts him in a tougher position. I actually think J.D. Vance performs slightly better than Donald Trump in a lot of these matchups. So, with all of that said, let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Do you agree or disagree with any of my analysis on any of these states? I'd love to know what you guys are thinking in the comments below. I love reading through those and seeing where you guys stand on races as well. If you haven't already, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel for more election content. There's a playlist on the right that has my 2026 midterm cycle predictions that you're welcome to check out. And with all of that said, let me know if you have any suggestions in the comments below, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Thank you guys again so much for watching.